Hello and welcome to the Drexel interview. I'm your host, Paula Morantz Cohen, speaking to you from the Drexel University Picture Gallery on the day of the Democratic presidential debate. Our guest today is Chris Matthews, star of MSNBC's Hardball and NBC's The Chris Matthews Show, a regular commentator also on the Today Show. Chris has a long-standing career in political reporting. Before coming to NBC, he was Washington bureau chief for the San Francisco Examiner and Washington columnist for the San Francisco Chronicle. He'll be reporting on the debate from Drexel University tonight. Chris Matthews, welcome to the Drexel interview. Thanks for having me in this
beautiful place.
Thank you very much.
My father went here in the 40s, my brother Bruce went here in the 70s, my brother Herb got a master's here, and I have an honorary PhD from Drexel.
Really?
So we have a lot of participation here over the years.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. Well, I want to hear some of your feelings about the debate tonight and what you think will happen, whether there'll be any surprises or anything that will change the course of events.
Well, by the time people see what we're doing here right now, they will have seen the debate and they will have appreciated whether Barack Obama has been able to engage Hillary Clinton, the front runner. Mm-hmm. That's the big question we're all waiting for. Is there going to be a close contest for the Democratic nomination for president? And we don't know yet.
You think this debate will decide that?
It's the 11th hour. It's the time. It's about to be November. Halloween's coming. The election's coming. The holidays are ahead. It really is getting very close to January 3rd when the voters are going to start to decide. And people have been wondering. I thought when I covered Obama's announcement back in Springfield, Illinois, and there we were at the old state capitol where Lincoln was a state assemblyman and where he practiced law in his office on the second floor across the street. And there's this young African-American guy who looks like a young Lindbergh, before the trouble with Lindbergh, and Jack Kennedy. He had the look with the short hair on the sides, a lanky guy. He looked like those guys. I know he's African-American, but he looked like those guys. He looked like a young American hero. And I kept thinking, this country's going to go crazy for this guy. He'll catch Hillary by May. This is going to be a great race. And after that, he really didn't engage. He went out and gave a lot of really good, big crowded speeches. In Oakland, he had 15,000. He had a big crowd in Austin, Texas. He went wherever there was a liberal crowd or a minority crowd, but he never really engaged in the debate with Hillary and said, here's what she stands for. This is what you'll get from her. This is what you'll get from me. He seems to be unskilled, maybe untalented in that kind of campaign politics.
Or unpracticed.
Unpracticed. He only beat, he lost to Bobby Rush in a race for South Side congressman from Chicago. He beat Alan Keyes, who was an out-of-state carpetbagger, didn't have a prayer against him in Illinois. He hasn't really got a track record of winning and losing.
Well, it's interesting that you think that perhaps tonight will be the turning point.
It better be.
But
How's
then
that
again,
for a dictum?
It better be, but then it's only one debate, and you have been known, and perhaps was it last night, have a harangue against the substanceless quality of some of these sorts of debates.
Not me.
Well, not you, but the candidates themselves, not saying anything of substance.
In fact, I gave a speech last night on the air that I think Obama should use, which is we're in a rut in one war without end in Iraq that seems to have no end. In fact, the front-running candidates are saying we won't have our troops out by 2013, which is 10 years after the war started. We seem to be on an inevitable direction, a road to a war with Iran. It seems like nobody's figured a way to avoid that. I think the American people, most of them, want to get out of that rut. They want to get out of that inevitable war rut.
And you think that...
And somebody in this great change election, I think, should offer the people deliverance from that rut. Now, maybe it's Rudy Giuliani. I don't know. Maybe I doubt it. Maybe it's Romney. I doubt it. Most people thought it was going to be Obama who would offer a real alternative to current policy. Hillary's been very careful. It's not clear that she would divert much from the Bush policy. She supported the war resolution. She supports targeting Iran for sanctions. And in many ways, she sounds like an echo of Bush. She wants us to think that. She's a very skilled professional politician. Is that what the country wants to end up with?
Okay. You really believe that Hillary wants to follow Bush's course?
She supported the war. She supported the Lieberman-Kyle. She supports Lieberman-Kyle on Iran. I think she wants to be safely in the pocket of the establishment with the carefulness of her husband, who supported the war with Iraq the first time. I think she wants to be very careful in hedging her bets for the general election. She does not want to be seen as someone who's anti-war. Okay. She wants to be seen as somewhere, when I was growing up, somewhere around Hubert Humphrey, maybe not Scoop Jackson, but somewhere in that part of the party that's fairly hawkish compared to the base of the party. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to switch gears and ask you about the students here. You were just speaking with them. You were talking to me. You like the students? You like speaking to them?
A lot of them come from other countries. Their parents come from other countries, South Asia and that part of the world. They're incredibly smart about what's going on here.
Are they engaged, do you think?
They were engaged with me. I engaged them because I usually start a fight with somebody.
Okay, but they were engaged with you. Are they engaged with the process? Do you think they care about this
they were
campaign?
all but two, I counted, are registered to vote. They're all 18. They all can vote. They look like, I did a poll that was 39 to 22, Hillary versus Rudy, to see if they've engaged enough to have a favorite, if they're forced to pick one. I think they did what my high school class would have done.
I was just going to ask
My high school class was reasonably interested, but not much.
Well, you were very interested.
Well, I'm different.
Okay.
I'm uniquely interested. But
so you don't think it's any different than
that teacher behind me was the guy who jumped me from behind and said it's the media calling the shots. I said, look, the media's favorites have been Mario Cuomo, Colin Powell, Howard Dean, in some cases. This time around, maybe Barack Obama. When I sit at parties with people and I hear what they really think and care about, they have no influence because on television it doesn't show. They're much more idealistic and romantic about politics. Most people in the media that I like
are romantic
but they always have a hero, a Bobby Kennedy, a Gene McCarthy, someone with a big picture alternative. They may even be fond towards a Goldwater or a Ron Paul.
What do you think we need to look for as the American public to be able to tell, or at least get a sense, or perhaps guess what they're really saying?
Ask the person in some depth, what's the world like today? Let's just take it ethnically. Do you understand the history of the West's occupation of the Middle East? Do you understand how there's been a predictable syndrome in the 20th century when the French and the British and later the Russians invaded that part of the world, that there was always a resentment to the occupation. There was always an insurgency. There was always a counterinsurgency. There was always torture as part of the counterinsurgency. The road to Baghdad led inevitably to Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo. It always is the case. So when we invaded Iraq, we should have known that it will lead to the following bad things on our side, and we'll end up having a lot of enemies. Now, that's one thing. I'd like to know if they understand the word economically. Do they understand that we're not in an East-West fight anymore, that it is, in fact, China, Brazil, India, Russia, the BRIC countries, who are capitalists now, and they are challenging us for the resources of the world, and we're going deeper and deeper into debt with these countries like China. Have they thought that through?
Have we gotten answers to those questions?
I'm not sure we've tested
How
them.
do we get answers to those questions? That's the question. And what you're really saying is, do these people know history? Do they understand?
Do they have any sense?
History?
Well, Churchill, my hero, said, study history, study history, study history. They haven't. George Bush obviously had not before he became president. He was listening to ideologues around him who had a better grasp, but didn't share with him the downside of what they were advising. Clearly, Cheney is not a stupid person, but Cheney has a strong passion on the subject of war, which tends to be martial, let's face it. The ideologues around him had a purpose. They believed in this Wilsonian, Straussian view of the Middle East. Okay. Bush didn't seem to have anything to push back from that. He didn't say, wait a minute, yeah, that's all true. Maybe we can democratize, but doing it at the point of a gun barrel probably won't work, because it's never worked when the West has gone in that part of the world. And by the way, the Western power always wins the first round. They always put up the mission accomplished sign. The Crusaders had that sign up for 120 some years. Mission accomplished. But you know what happens inevitably? Tissue rejection. The indigenous population drives the foreign out. Yeah. And that's what happens.
So which of the candidates do you feel, I'm not saying which one you support, but which one do you feel has the best grasp?
Potentially it could have been Obama, but he hasn't run an impressive campaign.
So we're talking about packaging.
He grew up in Indonesia to some extent. He has a look at America, that unique ability to look at us. I got it for the Peace Corps for 2 years. I got to tell you, there's nothing like looking at America for 2 years from a distance. You get a perspective on it to your own religion, your own cultural background. You never quite go back to it again once you've looked at it from a distance, because you realize how anthropological we are. We're all anthropological. We might as well all be from the New Guinea, because we go up in a different New Guinea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm talking Margaret Mead.
Okay.
So, who? Obama, if you read his first book, which he wrote, it's all there.
Okay. Well, speaking of books,
but I'm not sure he has understood how to turn all his background, which is really rich, white grandparents. It's stunning to see a guy who's African American with grandparents, with parents-in-law, or grandparents actually in his case, who are like middle-of-the-road, heartland, Midwestern Americans, you know, and they say he grew up loving his grandparents. He says once in his book about it, he said, it's something to know your mother was in love with this African guy, this guy from Kenya, and to see it all whole, as she saw him whole. Now, maybe he gussied up some of his story, maybe he took some poetic license, but damn it, what a story. He knows things. I was once at an airport one time with a kid who was a child of black and white parents. And I said, you know, you've got a story to tell. Because you're right there on the San Andreas Fault of America. It's so much to know about. Well, race is a bigger problem.
You seem to be saying that it's this melding of white and black that
black and white is
99%
of the American challenge facing us still. 1% is terrorism. Let's be honest about it. We can deal with horror, but we can't deal with this in the long run division.
So you think that's the biggest issue in this country
as long as the Islamic Americans who live in, Islamic people who live in this country are incredibly steadfastly loyal to this country as they are. Terrorism is not the threat that has been made out to be. Okay. It would be a threat if we were like France, where their population that's Islamic has never been assimilated. Yeah, that would be a problem. No, our problem is becoming the America we want to be. Right. I'm telling you, this sounds like old school. But it still is the challenge. Yeah. Drive through the streets of Philadelphia. Do you see the problem of terrorism? I see the problem of poverty and division and hopelessness. That's the problem. You know, it's not that occasionally somebody's going to come in and shoot us up.
You grew up in Philadelphia, or the Philadelphia area.
No, I grew up in the city. I'm proud to say I'm not from the suburbs, I'm from the city.
How has it changed since you lived here? I mean, you've come back periodically.
It's gone downhill.
Really?
Up and down the boulevard. The boulevard was really nice down to Hunting Park. We lived on North Broad. It was a nice neighborhood. It was safe. There was no crime. Let's say you left the door open. It's different now. What are we kidding? I was back when we had horse troughs.
Good and bad, better
well,
and
worse. St. Stephen's was nice. St. Stephen's was nice. That area of North Philly, of Hunting Park Avenue and Broad, was a nice neighborhood. Polish and Irish. You walked to church. Everybody got along. Everybody, you know, it was a great neighborhood. I'm saying there was nothing wrong with it. Okay. What was wrong with it?
I don't say there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying Philadelphia is more than that neighborhood. There's a whole lot of stuff.
Well, I can tell you, I'm sure there was prejudice back then, but I got to tell you something. In terms of the neighborhood life, North Philly, where I grew up, was nice. It just was. We walked to the movies for 25 cents. My grandma would say, here's a quarter, go to the movies. And you walk to the movies a couple miles up Broad Street, no question of crime or anything. You know, I'm not sure kids can do that today, can they? I wouldn't think they could.
Some areas, some not.
No, I look at the crime rate in this town. We got a murder a day around here. Nutter's right. Can I get that on the record?
Nutter's right. Well.
And the black community, the community that has to deal with crime every day, we agrees with them 80%. We got to do something about guns on the street.
Okay.
A guy on Kansas can have a shotgun out in his farm somewhere. Walking down the streets of big cities should be treated like you're getting on an airplane. I don't know why you can check for guns getting on an airplane, but you can't check for guns walking down the street. Explain the difference to me, please. What's the difference?
I don't know the difference.
I agree with you there. It's a lot safer in an airplane than it is walking down the street at night in a big city, any big city.
Well, I want to talk about your book, just because we don't have that much time. Your latest book, I think it's your fourth?
Fifth.
Life's a Campaign, subtitle, What Politics Has Taught Me About Friendship, Rivalry, Reputation, and Success. Could you tell us a few things that politics has taught you?
Well, it's really aimed at kids coming out of school, young adults, because if you study hard, you get a 3.9, and you study your religion, you do all the right things as a kid. You know, you're loyal to your background, you do all the homework right, you still may not have it. And what you have to figure out is how to deal with people. A lot of kids are grinders, hardworking students, they don't get it. 3 things. One, you have to ask for things. You're not going to get that job till you ask for it. You may not get it if you ask, but you have to ask because asking is an amazing thing. If you ask for something, you get it. Like politicians have told me this. If they ask for $100 from a guy, they're more likely to get $200 from the guy later because he's invested in them.
What was the first thing you asked for?
I asked for a job on the Hill as working for a senator. I knocked on 200 doors, and I finally got a job with a senator from Utah who gave me a job as a Capitol cop, and I had a 38 special, and I defended the Pentagon Papers, a few other things. My first job out of the Peace Corps, I was a cop with a gun. And then 3 months later, I was a legislative assistant to a senator. I was writing speeches and sitting on the floor with him, writing amendments and doing all that stuff. But I had to get in the door somewhere. The second thing is after asking for something, which is the key, and it ain't begging, it's asking for somebody to believe in you. Number 2 is listening to people.